Okay, so flashback with me for a second. The mid-2000s, you're probably watching Nickelodeon.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're getting some genuinely useful, if a little silly, advice from the cast of Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide.
It was a classic, a
Yeah.
total cornerstone for a lot of us growing up.
It really was. And Martin Qwerly, the character played by Tylor Chase, he was just this, reliable, kind of awkward, comforting presence on screen.
For sure. And you just assume when you see someone on a major network like that day in and day out.
You assume stability, you assume they're set for life financially.
Right. But the story of fame, it's rarely that simple, is it?
Not at all. And that whole assumption was just shattered earlier this year by this really disturbing viral video.
Mm-hmm.
It started making the rounds online, and it showed Tylor Chase, who's 36 now, living on the streets in Riverside, California, and the contrast.
Oh, it was brutal. The bright lights of the TV show versus the harsh reality of the street.
Welcome to the deep dive.
That video just instantly created this headline that I think perfectly captured what everyone was feeling. That sense of, like, tragedy and betrayal.
Fame ruined him. Parents stole everything.
Exactly. Everyone saw a star fall, and the immediate thought was, okay, he's broke, and someone betrayed him.
But our mission here is to go way beyond that headline.
Way beyond. We're going to unpack the incredibly complex layers of what's happening with Tylor Chase. We'll look at the system that, maybe contributed to it.
We're talking about the history of child actors getting exploited, this total myth that they're all guaranteed to be wealthy.
And the really excruciating challenge of trying to help someone with severe mental health issues who is, well, actively refusing that help.
So we're using this one very public, very tragic story to try and understand the huge stakes of being famous young, and maybe see the cracks in an industry that can just chew people up.
Yeah, this isn't just a news story. It's about what happens when fame, money, and severe illness all collide.
Okay.
Let's get into it.
So the discovery itself is just heartbreaking. It really was. The video showed him in, visible distress, and the public's first reaction was just this huge outpouring of sympathy.
And a rush to figure out, like, how can we help him financially?
But what I found really striking was how quickly his former colleagues responded.
Yes. That response, it really highlights this this powerful, almost tragic community that exists among former child stars.
They have this bond, right?
They do. They get the pressures in a way nobody else can. And one of the first people to offer help publicly was Shaun Weiss.
From the Mighty Ducks.
Exactly. And his own battle with addiction and recovery has been so public. He knows this world.
So what did he say?
His offer was super direct. He basically said, all we need to do now is find him. He understood the first step wasn't money, it was contact.
Right, establish contact, then get him into treatment. He was offering a path, not just a handout.
And this is where the response gets really telling.
You're talking about his Neds Declassified co-star, Daniel Curtis Lee.
Yeah, Cookie. He also nobilized, but he was immediately cautious. He warned against just, dumping money on the situation.
Which is so smart, because that community, they understood the risk of just handing cash to someone who's in a crisis.
Totally. So they started talking about setting up a structured trust, like a financial safety net.
And the plan was so clear. The funds would only be released after, and this is the key part, after he completed a formal supervised rehab program.
It's the only responsible way to do it. They were trying to build long-term care, not just a temporary fix.
Lee even said Chase was really excited by all the support.
But they knew. They knew genuine stability needed safeguards. It needed professional help, not just, viral videos and good intentions.
So you have this amazing wave of support, you have offers of structured, responsible help, and then it all just hits a wall.
An impossible wall.
Because a conflicting and frankly devastating story starts coming from the family. About money, about his illness, and about his refusal to get help.
And that's the twist nobody saw coming. It just stops the whole narrative dead in its tracks.
The focus just shifts completely at that point.
It really does. Family sources start talking to the media, and they don't dispute that he's in distress, but they completely change the reason for it.
They say he has schizophrenia.
And that he's refusing to take his medication.
Wow.
And then they go on to claim he's not actually broke, or even technically homeless. They said he has plenty of money.
Wait, plenty of money.
That's the claim, that he has access to his own resources. But because of his condition and not being on medication, he actively rejects help.
And he keeps tossing his phone so they can't find him.
Exactly. It just complicates everything.
And that all came to a head when someone started a GoFundMe for him, right?
They did. And his mother almost immediately intervened and asked for it to be canceled.
And her reason?
Heartbreakingly clear. She said money wasn't the problem. She said he was refusing to get better.
Which raises this just agonizing question.
It's a huge societal question. When someone is dealing with a severe mental illness, especially something like schizophrenia, which can include a symptom called anosognosia.
What's that exactly?
It's basically a lack of awareness or insight into your own illness. You genuinely don't believe you're sick, even when all the evidence is there.
So if a person doesn't believe they're sick and they refuse help, what can anyone even do? Legally or personally?
That's the dilemma. The power of friends, family, even former co-stars is incredibly limited no matter how much money or how many resources they have.
So when the public was saying, why don't his old castmates just pay for his rehab?
The reality is paying for it doesn't mean anything if the patient refuses to walk through the door or take the medication.
And that's why a lot of people started pushing back on the criticism. They were saying it's a crazy ask.
It is. To expect a former middle school coworker to take on the massive 20 years later burden of this kind of journey.
The mental, emotional, financial, all of it. The help he needs goes so far beyond friendship.
If you're finding these layers behind the headlines as fascinating as we are, make sure you're subscribed. We have even crazier stories coming up, especially about the finances of child stars.
Okay, so now we have to tackle the second part of that headline. Parents stole everything.
Right.
We have the context now of the mental illness, the difficulty of getting him help. But what about the money? The family says he has plenty, but the headline screams theft.
And this points to a much deeper systemic myth in Hollywood.
The myth that every kid on a hit TV show is automatically a millionaire.
Exactly. And former cast members from Neds Declassified have been very, very clear about this. Basically, no one from that show is rich.
And to understand why, you have to look at how they were paid.
They were paid as close to scale as possible.
And scale just means the minimum rate that the Screen Actors Guild requires. For a Nickelodeon show in the 2000s, that wasn't a huge amount of money.
Not at all.
Oh.
Yeah, and here's the real systemic kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
They got flat paychecks as kids.
And never got residuals.
Never. Residuals are the payments actors get when a show reruns or streams. It's where the real long-term wealth comes from.
But the contracts for their shows, a lot of them from that era, they had minimal or zero residuals. The network just bought them out.
So even though Neds Declassified is streaming right now, constantly being watched,
They see none of that money.
none of it. One source said a lot of the cast are still working multiple jobs, living in one-bedroom apartments.
So when the family says Tylor Chase has plenty of money, it probably just means he has his legally protected savings, not some massive fortune.
Which brings us to the history of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because parents taking a child's earnings is, it's tragically foundational to Hollywood.
You have to go back to Jackie Coogan.
The most famous example.
Yeah.
The one that literally changed the law.
He was a huge silent film star, worked with Charlie Chaplin. He made a fortune.
In today's money, it would be somewhere between, what, $68 and $91 million?
An insane amount of money. And when he turned 18, he discovered it was all gone.
All of it. Spent by his mother and his stepfather.
And his mother's defense in court was just chillin'.
It was. She basically argued every dollar a kid earns before he's 21 belongs to his parents. Legally, she was right at the time.
There's a massive legal loophole.
And Coogan's lawsuit in 1938 led directly to the California Child Actors Bill in 1939. We all know it as Coogan's Law.
And what's so fascinating is what that law actually does.
It mandates that 15% of a minor's gross earnings have to be set aside in a block trust account, a Coogan account.
Which they can't touch until they're an adult.
It's a crucial safety net.
Mm.
But 15% of the small-scale pay salary is still a small amount. It's not a guarantee against future hardship, especially with chronic health issues.
And you have to connect that financial vulnerability to the emotional side of it, too.
So.
Well, we know that childhood trauma is a massive risk factor for developing schizophrenia in people who are already genetically predisposed to it.
Right, and the environment of being a child actor, especially back then, has been described by so many as
a nightmare. Abuse, neglect, something horrible. The industry doesn't just fail them with bad contracts. It can create an environment that contributes to the very mental health crises they face decades later.
So, what does it all mean? The story of Tylor Chase, it's not a simple case of, stolen money or rock-bottom addiction.
Not at all. It's this collision point.
It's a collision of the reality of low residual pay, for actors on these huge shows, the long-term mental cost of that high-stress childhood.
And this overwhelming, almost impossible challenge of trying to provide care to an adult who is actively refusing it.
Exactly.
We've seen the former child star community step up with so much compassion, offering real, structured help. But the conversation, this whole thing started online.
Yeah.
It revealed a deeper, maybe more uncomfortable question.
About our own attention.
Yeah. Someone on Reddit put it perfectly. They said, imagine if people gave a shit about all the other homeless people and not just the famous ones. And that really makes you think, why does a recognizable celebrity facing crisis get this massive response trust funds, rehab offers, that ordinary tragedy that chronic homelessness so often fails to get?
What is that gap in our compassion?
Yeah.
What does it say about us?
You've been listening to The Deep Dive, where we uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.